Hello, this is Richard with RSWatchWorks. I had a client reach out recently and say that they really liked the Omega Seamaster Black, but didn't like the price tag. He was checking through my Instagram and found a project I had completed a while back and thought it would be a great starting point as a nod to the Seamaster Black with just a few tweaks. That project was based on a Seiko 5KX, and while the dial would be perfect for the task, I thought there would be better options available for the case and other parts, so it would make the most sense to start from scratch. And so we did. I already had the necessary dial in my dial drawer, and boy is this dial cool. We also decided to use the handset from the 5KX as well. Seeing as this project will be a day-date project, I'm using the Seiko NH36. This is a spectacular movement for the money with both day and date functions. To house the movement and look the part, I'm using this black Seamaster style SKX conversion case, a matte black chapter ring, crown, and case back. For this project, I'm using a flat sapphire crystal for the look, a black Seamaster inspired bezel, click spring, and a very Seamaster black inspired bezel insert. To take it to the next level, I'll also be using black day and date wheels. With all our parts, we're ready to build. But first, we gotta make sure our bench is clean. It's absolutely imperative that the bench be a clean area for assembly. We don't want any dirt or dust in our final watch. And with that, we're ready to build. Our first step is to ensure our movement is keeping time within standard. So onto the time graph where it goes. This one's keeping excellent time, so no manual adjustment is needed. If it wasn't keeping such great time, I would manually regulate it. And now it's into the movement holder for some surgery. The first step in removing the day wheel is to remove the C-clip that holds it on. For this, I use a small screwdriver, being careful not to damage anything. And there it goes. With that removed, we can carefully remove the day wheel. There's a small plastic gear that also needs to be removed if we're going to work on the date wheel. Now we can remove the 4 screws that hold down the date indicator maintaining plate and the date jumper plate. With all 4 screws removed, we can now remove the date indicator maintaining plate and set it aside. With the date indicator maintaining plate removed, we can remove the date jumper plate. With the date jumper plate removed, we can remove the entire date wheel. With the white date wheel removed, I can now install the black date wheel. Installation is simply the reverse order of removal. The date wheel is lowered into place, being careful not to damage the numbering. Next comes the date jumper plate and the date indicator maintaining plate. These both must be lined up. Now we can install the 4 screws. I start by just screwing them down slightly snug. Once all 4 screws have been installed, you can torque the screws down. A quick function test to verify proper function. Now we're ready to move on to our day wheel, being careful not to forget the small white gear. The day wheel is lowered into place, meshed with the small white gear, and the C-clip replaced. Now our day and date wheels are installed and working properly. What a difference that's going to make for this build. There's our beautiful 5KX dial. Since this dial is made for a 4 o'clock crown position case, we're going to have to remove the feet to use a 3 o'clock crown position case. Next I'll use a file to remove any remaining material. Now that the dial has no feet, we need a way to secure it to the movement holder. For this we'll just use dial dots. They're small circular or rectangular pieces of double-sided adhesive. They work quite well for this purpose. Now that the dial dots are affixed, I can install the dial, ensuring it is indexed properly using the day, date wheels, and crown stem as references. And there it is, all lined up and ready for hands. Now we start the slow process of rotating the movement over until the date wheel kicks over. Now we can start hand installation, starting with the hours hand. Clearance is checked and adjusted as necessary. I like to rotate the hour hand down to the 6 o'clock position before installation of the minutes hand. On goes the minutes hand. Again, checking for proper alignment. Now application of the seconds hand. I use a small piece of Rodico to hold seconds hands. I find this to be the best method. Clearance checked. And of course, another function test before we case the movement. Now we're ready to prepare our case. Start by installing the chapter ring. A little cleaning to remove any dust. And now I install the crystal gasket, gently massaging it in place. Now I can install the crystal, with a little bit of compressed air to remove dust. Now I can press the crystal into place. Even though these dies are made of Delrin, I still use some plastic to protect the watch case. And there it is, fully seated. Now we can case the movement. A little bit of compressed air. And here's the big moment. And wow, look at that. Now we're starting to see what it's going to look like all together. Now we need to cut our crown stem to length. So I secure it here in my pin vise, cut it, and now we'll file off any rough edges. And there it is, ready for our crown. And of course it's cleaned off with a little bit of Rodico to remove any excess metal. Now I'll use a tiny bit of thread locker to ensure that the stem stays secured in the crown for life. Tighten it up, and it's good to go. Here I apply some Mobius 9501 heavy grease to the winding stem. This is recommended per the technical instructions of the NH36. I also use some silicone grease on the O-rings of the crown. Now the crown may be installed. For the case back gasket, I use silicone grease as well to ensure water tightness and slippage as the case back is tightened. Now I can install the case back, and of course a little cleaning of the threads before installation. Now I'll snug the case back down with my rubber ball before final torque is applied. Now the case is hermetically sealed. To ensure water resistance, I'm going to be wet pressure testing this watch. For this, the watch is placed into a chamber that is pressurized to 6 bar and allowed to rest a while above the waterline before being submerged. Then, pressure is slowly relieved. If the watch had a leak, it would have allowed air into the case. Once the pressure in the chamber is relieved, the pressure differential between the case and the chamber would result in a very noticeable stream of bubbles from the leak point while the watch is underwater. The bubbles seen here are normal, just air trapped under the bezel. This process is very cool and gives you the confidence to take your watch underwater. Test passed. In general, a 6 bar test indicates a watch is likely water resistant to much greater pressure. Now I am ready to install the bezel. First, the click spring is installed. This is what is responsible for the unidirectional tactile click of the bezel. But first I'll apply some silicone grease to the bezel O-ring to ensure smooth operation. Now the bezel is ready to be pressed on. Bezel operation is checked and good to go. Now I can apply the bezel insert, starting with this adhesive ring. I like to remove the center portion before taking the outside ring and installing it into the bezel. Now it's time to install the actual bezel insert. This must be lined up exactly at 12 o'clock. And there we go, right at 12 o'clock. Now look at that. What a gorgeous build. And now a final function test. This thing is a beaut. Perfect blend of Seiko, stealth, and homaging the Omega Seamaster. Now let's get it on a strap. For this I'm going to use a 2-piece FKM rubber strap. And look at that, on the strap it's really looking nice. This build was an absolute pleasure to complete. I absolutely love the mashup of design elements as a nod to the Seamaster Black but with the obvious Seiko base. And I can't say enough about the feel this watch has. It's so understated and stealthy, yet when you look deep it's actually got a lot going on. In this case, the client was able to get his cake and eat it too, so to speak. This concludes the Seamaster Black homage build. Enjoy the pictures and video. A big thank you for watching. I do hope you enjoyed it. And a big thank you to my clients over the years for all the trust and support. I do offer build services, modification works, and a number of curated watches on my website and Etsy. If you're interested in having your watch modified or building something special like this project, please do reach out. My contact info will be in the description. Please subscribe and hit that like button, and stay tuned for more fun builds.